Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. Whether you want your home decorated or maybe you want to do this as a business. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, on Long Island, 631-957-5106. The website is liholidaylighting.com. And also brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, also on Long Island. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. Whether you're looking for hardware, mulch, topsoil, come winter time it'll be salt, or hurricane emergency preparedness supplies, you can get them at Omni, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Okay, I would call this transition week, folks, because we've got tropical systems galore, and they are ushering in a bit of a change in the character of the atmosphere as it is looking distinctly more tropical. We have Tropical Storm Fred in the northeast Gulf of Mexico, approaching the Florida Panhandle with 60-mile-an-hour winds. It got better organized overnight and this morning and had a bit of a burst of strengthening now that it's approaching land. Tropical Depression Grace is bringing heavy rains and mudslides to the Dominican Republic and particularly to Haiti, where, of course, we all know they had that major earthquake a couple of days ago. So this was the absolute last thing they needed to have. And they had Fred go by there and produced rains before the earthquake. So they're in dire straits here. Obviously, Grace is moving westward. It'll be passing just to the east of southernmost Haiti overnight. And then it looks like it's going to strengthen a bit as it heads westward across the northernmost part of the Caribbean. It looks like now it's going to pass south of Cuba. In fact, pass in between Cuba and Jamaica, and eventually head into the Gulf of Mexico. And I think we could probably see this become a hurricane at some point. And east of Bermuda is a tropical depression that is well organized, and it looks like it may be very close to, if not already is, a tropical storm. And we'll see what the Hurricane Center does with this later today. It is moving southward, and it will turn southwest and west. And the next name on the list is Henri. So looking at Fred, it is really gotten well defined here on the tight view on the satellite. It is this core of convection, still has kind of a sheared look to it. You get more of a comma shape than a completely circular shape, but it is in the process certainly of continuing to organize just as it's approaching the coast. And the Gulf water temperatures here are all in the mid to upper 80s, certainly supportive of a developing tropical storm. I don't think it's going to have enough time to reach hurricane strength because it will be moving inland during this evening. So it has maybe another 6 or so hours over the open waters. The big story with this will be the heavy rains that it will be spreading up through Georgia and eventually up the Appalachians. So we're talking about potential big rains and flash flooding for the southern and central Appalachians. And we're going to probably see waves of moisture come up from this as we move through this week. But because the main low is taking a track to our west, we are going to see the heaviest rains. I think it's going to be mostly from I-81 westward that's going to wind up seeing rains that could potentially produce some localized flooding as we go through the week. Meantime, we are seeing quiet radars here in the northeast, but we're starting to pick up at a few scattered showers and thunderstorms down through parts of Virginia and North Carolina, even a couple of cells in over Maryland and central Pennsylvania. We're seeing a gradual humidification of our atmosphere again after getting that nice shot of dry air over the weekend. Now we're seeing the tropical humidities come back, and with all this tropical moisture and the remnant low of Fred destined to move up the Appalachian Mountains, if I were to draw a track for you, it'll probably do something like this as it moves toward the northeast. So usually anytime they go west of the Appalachians, the rain shield from a system that takes that sort of track tends to cut off probably right around westernmost New Jersey. It'll be areas from here north and west that will get into rain. And I think I-81 is probably a good demarcation line as far as where you'll probably see rains heavy enough to cause some flash flooding. And in fact, the WPC folks are indicating the lightest green is at least an inch. So on the areas that are to the east of that, where you don't see any colors, it's just white. It doesn't mean it's not going to rain. It's just that they're thinking there it's probably going to be less than an inch. So the lightest green will be at least an inch. The next darker greens, a few stripes in there across Pennsylvania of 2 to 4 inches. And then you're looking at the yellows and the oranges. This is where you're talking 4 to 6 and 6 to 10 inches of rain possible. And you'll notice that there are a few patches there in western North Carolina and also in northeastern Georgia, and obviously down also on the Florida Panhandle. And there's the Hurricane Center's forecast track here, coming ashore as a tropical storm and then weakening fairly quickly as it moves up to the northeast. The remnant low center will be on the Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina triple point there by tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. And by 7 a.m. Wednesday, it'll be on the West Virginia, Kentucky border and continuing to move its way on up to the northeast. So I'm just going to jump over now. We'll go to the GFS just to give you an idea of how this plays out. We're talking here about waves of moisture that'll be coming up. So we're not really talking about anything as far as continuous rain is concerned. And certainly if you're east of I-90, if you're in I-95 or eastward, you probably won't see very much at all, at least into Wednesday, other than the isolated shower or downpour. But tonight, you'll notice there's some showers and downpours moving into western and central Pennsylvania. And then tomorrow morning, they kind of spread to eastern Pennsylvania, but they don't really get much further east than that. Then the next wave comes up. And of course, by this time, tomorrow afternoon, the low center, that is Fred, will be somewhere in northern Georgia. And you see that big core of yellow there showing heavy rains. Then that moves on to the northeast. So once we get into Wednesday, you'll start to see these areas of rain, or Tuesday night into Wednesday, you'll start to see these areas of rain push a little bit further to the east. But still, the bulk of the heavy stuff is going to wind up being to the west. So in between all of that, you'll probably see cloudy to partly sunny skies. Temperatures each day will be getting up into the 80s. And of course, the humidity levels will be quite high. And as we move to the latter part of this week, once we get to Thursday, the remnant low of Fred by this point is completely gone. But we're going to still have a southwest flow and a little upper air trough that's going to come through. And that'll probably set off some showers and downpours again as we go to Thursday, Friday, and probably even into this weekend. By the way, that little low, I'm going to run this back. You can see here east of Bermuda, this is the system that is probably going to be a tropical storm later today, Henri. It's actually moving south, and it's going to turn southwest and then eventually west. Now, it's forecast to sort of meander around off our coastline for the rest of this week. Just the one thing I might pay attention to, if this were to strengthen into a higher levels tropical storm or possibly even a minimal hurricane, it's not impossible that you could see this wind up strengthening to a minimal hurricane. Sitting out there is probably going to start kicking up the surf and affect some tide and some tidal issues will probably develop very late this week or going into this weekend, because it's not until the weekend that it finally starts to get kicked away to the northeast. So while it's out there, you probably want to keep a little bit of attention to it, particularly if you live right along the immediate shore. This is not going to be the best of weather weeks, considering the increase in the humidity that we're going to have to deal with and the waves of rain and downpours that'll be coming up with the leftovers of Fred. And then, of course, we're watching that system that is offshore. Weather in 5, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, 631-957-5106, the phone number there. And the website is liholidaylighting.com. Before we go, I just want to touch base on Tropical Depression Grace, which is going to probably become a tropical storm on Tuesday as it moves westward between Jamaica and Cuba. And then eventually, I think it's going to wind up in the Gulf of Mexico. The intensity model guidance is growing more and more bullish on Grace, with many of the models taking it at least to a Category 1, and we have even a couple that go to a Category 2 and a Category 3. I don't think that's unreasonable. Conditions in the Northern Caribbean as well as in the Gulf of Mexico, are a lot more favorable later this week than they were for the approach of Fred. Plus, we're getting to the time now, calendar-wise, where one of these systems should become a hurricane and possibly even a major hurricane. And in terms of the forecast track here, we've got this upper ridge that is building in the southwest Atlantic that's going to be building across the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to be driving Grace westward. Grace is underneath that ridge of high pressure. And the setup aloft is something like this. Your upper air level winds are going to be from the east-southeast, and the low-level winds as well. So Grace will move underneath that ridge, and there's nothing really that I see in terms of the upper air that would cause it to turn more northward later this week. So it's a pretty good bet that we're going to see this thing move west or west-northwest during its life cycle. So maybe South Texas, but possibly the bulk of the models are talking about the coast of Mexico down to Tampico, perhaps, as a spot. But we'll, of course, be watching this going forward. In the meantime, tonight, the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7:30. We'll go through all of this all over again and give you the latest updates and let you know what we expect for the week ahead and the long range. That's on my YouTube channel, Joe Cioffi, and we are going to be going on live at 7:30 Eastern Time. Have a great afternoon, everyone.